So hello everyone. In this session I'll be explaining a very simple code to perform string copy. Okay, that is, here we have a string at the label src and that string is ARM7. I want to copy this particular content into some other memory location represented by the label DST. Okay, that indicates source and destination. So if you notice here, I've written something like space, which reserves uninitialized memory location of size 12 bytes. Okay, this is the location where I want to paste the content which I'm copying from this particular source location. Okay, and my source I have written DCB here because it is defined constant byte, and the reason for that is each string character requires 1 byte of memory. Okay, and the string we have considered is null terminated string, because of which there is a comma 0 here. And align here is to ensure that all the next instructions here are word aligned. So here and here in both the place we have something called area followed by certain set of things. Area in both the case is nothing but an assembler directive which defines a section of memory to store whichever information is written after that. Okay, and str copy is the name for this particular section of memory. Okay, and which stores this information. Code to indicate all these are nothing but instructions. Read only because we don't want any modification to be happening to this particular code during a runtime. Okay, and if you see here, str copy data is the name of the memory section, and this section of memory has only data, not actual instructions, and it is read write because we should be able to modify this content during runtime. Okay, so end here is an assembler directive which indicates end of source file. Now let's just come back here. So entry here indicates where exactly execution starts, that is the very first label that we notice after entry assembler directive is the location where actually execution starts. We are loading the address associated with label source and destination into registers R0 and R1. Okay, and what we are actually doing here is we are loading the very first data pointed by R0. If you consider this particular case, ARM7 is your string followed by a null character. So in this particular case, when you load the very first data pointed by R0, it will actually copy the ASCII value of the first character, store it in register R2. And R0 address is incremented so that it points to the next character. So R2 has the ASCII value of A and R0 has address of R. Okay, now since R2 has the ASCII value of A, by performing the next task, what we are doing is the ASCII of A is actually stored in the location which is pointed by R1. Okay, and after that R1 is incremented to next position by this #1. Okay, the reason we do that is store the first value in the first position, then R0 will be pointing at the next value, or to copy it and place it in the next location, and this should continue. Okay, and till when should this continue? Until a value 0 is found. That is, we are comparing if given character ASCII value is actually 0, which is nothing but the value of null character, which indicates that you have already copied the entire string. Okay, so we keep copying the data until we find the null character. As soon as null character is detected, we'll move to stop. Otherwise, we are branching back to copy. That is what exactly is happening here. Branch if not equal, we'll check if z is 0. This happens if R2 is not equal to 0. If R2 is equal to 0, this will be ignored and this will be executed. That is stop be stop, which is an infinite loop, will be executed. Okay, now let's see if this particular code works appropriately. First, let's check for errors. There are no errors, so we'll go ahead with debugging. So the very first thing that is done here is R0 and R1 are loaded with the addresses of source and destination label. So let me open that in the memory. And if you notice here, these are nothing but the ASCII values associated with the letters ARM7, which is nothing but our desired string. Okay, I want to copy this here. Okay, that is my purpose, but just so that you can see the output, not in terms of numeric value but actual data, I'll change the format to ASCII so that I can actually see letters ARM7 here. Now if we check what is the task to be performed, location pointed by R0 is the first data here. Okay, that is copied to R2, and then R2 content is copied to the memory location. A is what you can see at our destination. Next we have compared if R2 is 0. Based on the CPSR conditional flags, we know it is not 0 and we have not reached the end, so we are branching back to the loop. Okay, then second character is taken into register R2, which is nothing but 52. Okay, 52 is nothing but ASCII value associated with R. As we store that in the destination, we get the letter AR there. Okay, so again we have not reached the end, so we'll continue and copy the next data. So this is continued until we actually reach the end of the string. That is, this continues as long as R2 is not equal to 0. Okay, but in the next case we have reached the end of the string, so R2 is 0, because of which we'll move to the infinite loop, that is stop be stop. But you can see that our string ARM7 is copied from source to destination.